Picture this. You're at the base of Mount Fuji, absolutely majestic, and there's this brand new city actually taking shape right there. But it's not just, another development. It's set up as a real-world test bed.
Right, like a living laboratory.
Exactly. A dynamic place where they're figuring out the future of how we live, how we move. It's quite something.
The scale of it is really striking. And the ambition, we're not just talking about adding a few smart sensors to an old city.
No, not at all.
It's a whole integrated ecosystem they're building from the ground up.
Precisely. And that's what this deep dive is all about. Toyota Woven City, we've looked at a bunch of articles, some research, and they give us a pretty fascinating window into what Toyota's aiming for, their goals, and honestly, some really big questions this whole project raises.
And stepping back a bit, what jumps out right away is this huge shift for Toyota, the car company everyone knows.
Yeah.
This isn't just about a new model. It feels much bigger, like they're rethinking how we'll interact with the world around us.
Okay, let's unpack that shift then.
Yeah.
Because it seems Woven City isn't just some side project. It really signals Toyota moving from being just a car maker to becoming what they're calling a mobility solutions company.
That's the term, yeah. A key phrase. And living laboratory. Test course for mobility. You see those terms a lot. It really captures what they're trying to do. And this direction, they announced it publicly back at CES 2020, but it builds on something they mentioned earlier in 2018 about this transition.
And Woven by Toyota, or Wubby by T, they seem to be the engine behind a lot of the actual innovation, things like ADAS, their Arena OS, even their own venture fund, Woven Capital.
That's right. And what's really interesting is how it all comes together. You've got Toyota's history, their strength in manufacturing, the hardware side, merging with the WIT, which is focused on software, the cutting-edge tech. Woven City is kind of where those two worlds meet and get tested.
And this idea of mobility, it goes way beyond just cars, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. They're talking about the movement of everything, people, sure, but also goods, information, even energy.
Wow.
And it's all supposed to ladder up to this big goal of well-being for all.
Okay. Which makes sense when you think about all the disruption happening in the auto industry right now.
Exactly. EVs, autonomous driving, shared cars, and bikes. Everything's changing.
Yeah.
So Woven City looks like Toyota trying to get ahead of the curve, really position themselves for whatever comes next.
Okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts then. The city itself. Location. Susono City, Shizuoka, right there at the foot of Mount Fuji.
Iconic spot.
And it's on the old site of their Higashi Fuji plant, a big factory they used to have. There's some real symbolism there, repurposing that land.
Definitely. Moving from, traditional industry to future tech on the same ground, it's a statement. And the scale phase 1 is about 50,000 square meters.
Yeah, roughly. But the whole vision is much larger, like 708,000 square meters. What's that, about 175 acres?
That's a decent size. And the planning, you mentioned some big names.
Right. Yark Ingels Group, biggie, they did the master plan. And Nick and Seki handled the phase 1 architecture. The whole philosophy seems to be about building a human-centered city.
Okay, human-centered. And a key part of that is this woven street idea, right? How does that work exactly?
So they've designed 3 main types of streets. First, there's the primary street. This is for faster autonomous vehicles.
Yeah.
And get this underneath it, there's this matter net for logistics. Like an underground delivery network to keep trucks off the surface.
Interesting. So they're really separating different types of movement. That's a big departure from typical city streets.
It really is.
Yeah.
Then you have the second type, the recreational promenade or mixed-use roads. These are for slower stuff, bikes, scooters, those little iWalk things.
Micromobility.
Exactly. And pedestrians, too. So a much calmer, lower-speed vibe.
Which definitely contrasts with how cars usually dominate urban spaces.
Totally. And the third type is the linear park. These are basically pedestrian-only paths, really focused on integrating nature, creating green spaces, ecological corridors connecting out to Fuji and the valley.
So what you're describing is a clear shift in priority. Pedestrians, micromobility, they seem to come first before traditional cars. That's quite a change in thinking for urban design.
It really is. And sustainability is a huge piece of this, too. Woven City actually got LED for Community's Platinum certification.
Platinum, wow, that's the top level.
And the first ever in Japan, apparently. That says a lot about their commitment, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. LED Platinum isn't just about efficient buildings. It's about the whole community's environmental performance, how it impacts the people living there. It's a really high bar.
And they're backing it up with specific choices. Lots of wood construction, which is lower carbon than concrete and steel. Photovoltaic panels everywhere for solar power.
And the energy system itself is interesting. Heavy focus on hydrogen fuel cells as the main source.
Right. With excess energy stored in solid-state batteries, which is pretty advanced stuff.
Definitely. Plus all the other expected things. Smart grids, water recycling, smart irrigation, underground microgrids. They seem to be ticking all the sustainability boxes.
It sounds incredibly comprehensive.
Yeah.
So how does all this connect? The smart tech integration seems key.
Yes, very much so. Akio Toyoda called it a digital operating system for the city's infrastructure.
A digital OS for the city.
Yeah, the idea is everything's connected. People, buildings, vehicles, all communicating through this central system.
That level of integration sounds ambitious. It's not just smart homes. It's the whole city functioning as one intelligent system.
Precisely. And the homes themselves are part of it. Smart homes using AI, they say, for things like health monitoring, helping with daily tasks.
And robotics play a big role too, right? Not just inside homes.
Right. Robots for grocery deliveries, probably using that underground Matternet, but also for waste collection, even infrastructure maintenance bots.
And they're building a digital twin, a virtual copy of the whole city.
Exactly. Think of it like a massive simulation. They can test changes, model traffic, energy use, whatever, in the virtual world before they try it in the real one.
That's got to be incredibly useful for planning and just managing something this complex, avoiding problems before they happen.
Potentially, yes. Huge potential for optimization. And AI is supposed to be involved in that too, optimizing energy, traffic flow, maybe even suggesting routines for residents.
Plus those autonomous Toyota e-pallets we've seen, they'll be everywhere for transport, deliveries, maybe even mobile shops.
So yeah, very highly connected, automated environment. But what about the people living there? It's not all just tech, is it?
No, definitely not. They have these roles, inventors and weavers. Inventors are the ones developing and testing the tech.
Okay.
And the weavers are the residents, the visitors, the ones actually living with it and giving feedback. It sounds like they're aiming for co-creation.
That co-creation aspect is crucial, I think. It suggests it's not just Toyota imposing tech, but that residents' experiences will actually shape how the city evolves. A feedback loop.
Yeah. And they're starting small with the population. Phase 1 begins with, what, around 100 people initially? Mostly Toyota and WT staff and families.
A controlled start. Makes sense.
Move-ins could start maybe fall 2025 or soon after.
Right. Test the systems on a smaller scale first. Gather data. Work out the kinks before scaling up. Smart approach.
The target for Phase 1 is about 360 residents eventually, and the long-term goal for the whole project is around 2,000 people. Visitors will be limited at first too, but they plan to allow public access for people to act as weavers, maybe from fiscal year 2026 onwards.
So a gradual opening up, learning as they go. And they're also setting up accelerator programs to bring in outside ideas.
Yes, exactly. Launching summer 2025, they say. Inviting startups, universities, researchers, making it an open innovation platform.
That open approach seems important. Recognizes that innovation doesn't just happen internally. You need that diverse input.
And speaking of input, they pulled together quite a network of partners.
Yeah, the list is pretty extensive. You've got the designers like Big and Nick and Sekai, of course. But then major tech and infrastructure players, Daikin, Panasonic, NTT, Ineos, Rinnai.
And even food companies like Nissan Foods and UCC Japan. They're looking at food environments, nutrition.
Right. That's fascinating. It shows they're thinking really holistically about daily life, not just the infrastructure.
The Nissan example about optimized nutrient-dense meals and studying their impact is pretty specific.
Yeah, and the AI analysis in the nursery school, it goes beyond just smart buildings into how tech interacts with human behavior and well-being.
There was also mention of a potential partnership with Waymo on the autonomous driving side, alongside Waybuti's own work.
That could be significant, yeah. Bringing in external expertise, even in core areas. It just highlights how complex building a smart city really is. You need expertise across so many different fields.
Urban planning, construction, energy, software, data science, even social science.
Everything. Okay, so where are they right now? What's the development status?
Well, we have a timeline. The initial shift announcement was CES 2018.
Right.
Woven City concept reveal was January 2020, also at CES.
Okay.
Groundbreaking for Phase 1 was February 2021. Then that LE LEED Platinum certification came in March 2023.
So steady progress. And Phase 1 construction finished when?
October 31st, 2024. They announced that completion formally at CES this year, January 2025, and had a ceremony in February.
So Phase 1 buildings are essentially up.
Seems like it. And as we said, first residents might move in this fall, 2025, or a bit after. Accelerator launches this summer. Public weavers from FY 2026.
And it's iterative, right? What they learn from phase 1 feeds into phase 2.
Exactly. They're even renovating part of the old factory for future manufacturing and prepping the site for phase 2 already. It's that continuous improvement idea.
Kaizen.
Yeah, Kaizen, but applied to city building.
It's not meant to be static. It's designed to evolve.
Okay, so let's pull back and think about the bigger picture. The potential impact, but also, let's be honest, the criticisms and challenges.
Sure. On the potential upside, it could genuinely tackle big urban problems, overcrowding, pollution, traffic jams.
Right.
It could serve as a kind of blueprint for smarter, greener cities, especially with the focus on renewables, hydrogen, cutting emissions.
And the autonomous vehicles piece is huge implications for safety, accessibility, maybe freeing up space currently used for parking.
Plus, using data to manage the city better, maybe even revitalize areas. And that human-centered design could lead to better social interaction, better quality of life. It's a very positive vision.
It is. But there are some pretty significant hurdles and criticisms, and that big bet on hydrogen seems to be front and center in the debate.
Yes, definitely. Groups like the Renewable Energy Institute have raised points about efficiency. Is hydrogen really the best way forward compared to batteries, especially for cars and homes? They question the practicality, things like using portable hydrogen canisters.
And the energy cost. Right. Producing hydrogen, compressing it, liquefying it, that all takes energy. Is it less efficient overall than just using electricity directly in batteries?
That's the argument some are making. And then there's consumer uptake. Japan has invested a lot in hydrogen, but sales of fuel cell cars are still really low.
People just aren't buying them in large numbers.
Right. And some analyses even suggest certain ways of producing and using hydrogen could end up causing more emissions, not less.
There's also the opportunity cost argument. Critics ask if all this investment in Woven City's hydrogen focus could have been better spent just accelerating Toyota's own push into battery EVs, or some feel they've been a bit slow.
It's a valid question about resource allocation, and then just the general feasibility.
Yeah.
We've seen other experimental cities or utopian projects struggle or fail in the past.
Yeah.
Integrating so much complex tech always carries risks of unforeseen problems. Will it actually work as smoothly as planned, and is it even desirable for everyone?
So Woven City becomes this really interesting case study, almost regardless of the outcome. It definitely highlights the challenges of scaling new tech, getting public buy-in.
Absolutely. It shows that tension between having a really bold, futuristic vision and the messy realities of actually implementing it on the ground.
There seems to be a real need to bridge that gap between the smart city dream and the practical constraints, cost, infrastructure, just how people actually live.
Precisely. Making the vision connect with the reality.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive. We've really seen Toyota's bold vision for this future city, focused on mobility, right there under Mount Fuji.
We've looked at the innovative design, the woven streets, the sustainability focus, the smart tech they're testing.
And that whole human-centered ecosystem idea with inventors and weavers.
But we've also got these big questions lingering, especially around the hydrogen strategy and just the overall challenge of pulling off something this ambitious.
It's undeniably a massive real-world experiment. And the results, whatever they are, could really influence how we think about building cities in the future.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. Considering everything we've discussed, the potential, the criticisms, what single part of Woven City do you think will be most decisive for its success or failure?
Yeah, what's the linchpin?
And thinking beyond just Woven City, what wider lessons could that hold for our own communities, for our future?
Definitely something to chew on as this project unfolds. We hope you keep exploring the topic, maybe thinking about those different perspectives we touched on.
Because ultimately, Woven City is part of that ongoing journey of innovation. And these kinds of bold experiments, even with all the uncertainties, they're really important for figuring out where we're headed.